Okay, you know what? We'll get started. People will be joining us kind of on the go here. Welcome everybody to day 5 of the Global Lacrosse Summit, and we kind of shift gears today and we go off the field or off the box and go to the business side. Some value building presentation here. So with us today is Tim Bates of OJHL Images and the Brooklin Lacrosse Club. I'm not going to do too much of an intro, Tim. You can share your experiences and do your things because they're pretty vast. But thanks for taking your time today and joining us. Really appreciate it. Obviously, some valuable insight. I get to be familiar with your work, so for everybody that's on, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box at the bottom. We'll address them through a moderation type facility. So I'll see those questions. I'll filter them through to Tim at the appropriate times, and then we can get going from there. So, I just got a message that there's no picture, and I'm seeing a picture. I'm sorry, I don't. I can see Tim pretty clear. Is there anybody else having a problem? Put that in the Q&A box, please. Okay. So Dave, you might have to reset and re-enter. I'm not sure what to tell you, but I can see Tim on here pretty plain as day. I can make out the pucks in the background. So Tim, you know what? We got to get started. You
no problem.
Get going here. Okay.
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. And I'd like to take an opportunity to thank Brad for all the effort that he's put in, and the Global Lacrosse Summit people and personnel behind the scenes. It's a lot of work. Thanks for joining today. I know the content is probably different than from what a lot of people are used to. So welcome to the Global Lacrosse Summit, and welcome to this portion about creating digital space for an event. The interesting part of the presentation that I'm going to go through today for you is it's going to kind of approach it in a multifaceted approach. But before I do that, I'd be remiss if I didn't turn around and wish you and your families all the safety during very perilous times that we obviously all know that we're in. It's a great time to be a sports photographer. I think there's a movie in Hollywood called The Day the Earth Stood Still. Well, I remember March 13th as the day sports stood still. So it's certainly been a difficult ride for a lot of friends and family and a lot of people that I know in the sports media industry. And for photographers specifically, so, event coordinators, sports teams, organizations throughout the world. So I know it's been a real tough go, and I'm thinking about you. And hopefully this presentation will breathe a little bit of life on some of the things that we do, and give you the ability to turn around and from the grassroots level, be it a tournament, be it a minor tournament, be it a professional tournament to a world-class event, to give you an idea of some of the ways you can incorporate photography specifically, because that's what I'm going to be addressing today. And pardon me, I do have a cold, so you may see me sipping some water and all that occasionally to keep my throat moist. So it's certainly a difficult time right now with COVID and everything that's going on. And I can tell you I've been part of a couple of conferences in regards to the way sports will look, specifically hockey, in the future. And there's a lot of different ideas that are being discussed, and how they're going to integrate, sports media, how we're going to interact with the athletes. And you kind of saw that towards the end of, or the beginning of COVID, when this was going on before the seasons were canceled, the way they were doing media interviews, the distancing, social distancing factors, one person in a room, cameras brought out. So all this is kind of, it affects directly what we do and the access that we have. So without further ado, I'll try to get into this, and bear with me. Hopefully Brad will interrupt me if I turn around and don't do anything technically proficient. So I'm going to try to get into this. So Brad, are we good there? Everybody can hear or see that screen that I have?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I got a pretty good view of it. You should be good to go.
Okay, good. So we're going to talk about creating digital space for your event. So what the heck is all that about? Well, anytime we start talking about photography, and I've been part of massive amount of seminars, I've attended photography schools and different presentations from some of the world's best photographers and agencies, Sports Illustrated, Getty Images, etc. So I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, but what I'm going to allow you to do is to try to focus something in a discernible manner. And you know what, anytime you kind of go to these seminars or be involved in these things, I always say that sometimes it's like getting a drink of water from a fire hydrant or a drink. There's a ton of information that comes at you. So you know what, if you, I'll try to keep it in a very salient form so that everybody can kind of understand. Use that Q&A thing if you want to stop me, because I do have the ability to talk really, really fast. There'll be a ton of information coming from you. But the one thing I wanted to tell you is, and what I'll do is I'll just just go down to my little contact sheet and I'll put that up as, you know, I will come back to this at the end of the seminar. You can certainly get a hold of me. This industry, especially the professional photography industry, is quite frankly encompassed of a lot of type A personalities. And I remember being a young photographer asking somebody, I had an issue with one of my cameras. I asked this professional photographer on the sidelines one time about something, and he said, read your manual. So, you know, that's a great kind of advice I got. So, you know what, it is a type A industry, but, you know, I'm one of the most open people that you'll meet. You know, I remember where I started. I remember how I got where I am today. And I'm never above giving anybody help. And I'll tell you, anybody that thinks they know everything about this industry or about being a photographer, a sports photographer, or about the industry itself is fooling you, because the bottom line comes down to is I'm learning every day. So there's my contact information. My portfolio is certainly there that you can turn and have a look at. And if you ever need anything, shoot me a message. If you leave me a voicemail message or an email, I'll endeavor to get back to you, and I will get back to you. And no question, by the way, is a silly one. I know you hear that in school all the time, but it's 100% true. If you have something to ask, and I'll do my best. If I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody that does and address it as best I can with you. So moving forward with the presentation, I want to talk about this because as a photographer or an event coordinator, I can tell you, you can get burned right off the start. The moment you get approached to shoot an event, be it a world-class event, be it the World Cup, be it a hockey tournament, be it a lacrosse tournament, anything. If somebody approaches you as a photographer, or you're approaching an event coordinator to turn around and engage in a business with them, or looking at photographing the event, you need to do this. And it's the confidentiality clause, I call it, or the non-disclosure clause. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. What you're doing is you're sending either a very simply worded, you don't have to be a lawyer. There are lawyer documents you can pay. There's millions of websites where you can enter into contracts, but you know what? It's a simple thing. Send them an email saying, you know, we're about to enter in a discussion concerning photography services for whatever the event might be. And please be advised that, you know, I'm asking that there's a non-disclosure clause between whatever the organization's name is, and myself as the photographer, and the prohibition of disclosure to any third party. This is what I mean by that. I'm going to give you an example. I got asked to send a group of photographers to Northern Canada, way up north, to turn around and do an international event. They wanted a quote from me. They basically wanted to know, you know, where we're going to be, what kind of services we could provide. So I provided them the document, and I didn't have this confidentiality clause or this prohibition of disclosure to a third party. And what happened was they used everything that I gave them, like all my cards. It's like playing poker, showing them your hand. And they used that information and they went fishing or shopping. So they basically went to all the other photographers in their area and said, look, here's what Tim Bates and his crew can do. Here's what they're going to charge us. Can you beat it? So what I did is I beat myself, because you're always going to find somebody who's going to turn around and undercut you, or, you know, shoot it for free, or there's a variety of different things. And if you're a photographer now, you're probably shaking your head because it happens all the time. So protect yourself legally. And the way you do that is prohibition of disclosure to any third party. If you're an event coordinator and you're hosting an event, why this is so important for you is that you may disclose things to the photography corps or to the director of photography or to your media coordinator that you don't want everybody else knowing. You don't want the photographer to say, hey, listen, you know, this is what they're offering. So when you talk to them, negotiate this and ask for this amount of money. So it's kind of a multifaceted or double-edged sword. It's critically important. And what you do, and you see there is you protect the integrity of the negotiation. Now, I've attended a lot of seminars, and I promise I'm not going to PowerPoint you to death, but the stuff that I'm going to give you is pretty relevant to an event, or to you as a photographer, to a director or an event coordinator, to kind of understand the scope. But this here, folks, it has to be one of the most important things right off the bat. Handshake deals are wonderful. Whether you should get into actual contracts and that, I'll leave that up to you. But I can tell you, I dealt with some young lacrosse photographers and some professionals, and one who's on this seminar right now is a very good friend of mine, works with me, an amazing guy who, you know, took a coordinator of a major lacrosse event at his word about payment. And I can tell you, they shot, they did a lot of work, they produced some amazing imagery. And at the end of the day, they turned around and didn't get paid, and they had to fight for their wages, etc. So this can be a real big problem. So this clause, working with the event coordinators, is kind of critical. If you're a photographer, you're going to laugh at this because for anybody that's coordinating your event, or for anybody that's a photographer, whether you're an entry-level photographer or you're a professional and do this for a living, this is the most common question I get asked every single time that I'm going to go to an event. Whether you're going to shoot for a team, whether you're going to do anything photography related, if it's a wedding, whatever, it doesn't matter. As a photographer, this, I believe, is the most common question you're going to get asked. How much do you charge, or how much would you charge? So I'm going to approach that subject on two different ways, one from the person hosting the event and one from the photographer, and I think you're going to enjoy the responses. So first of all, that response, or how much, that question I should say, how much do you charge, or how much would you charge, the most common question. But there's always, if you think of a stoplight, green light go, yellow is kind of caution, and red light is like stop. This is kind of the approach I use to that question. So here we go. Here's a yellow response. And this is a caution. This, to me, as a photographer, if I'm talking to an event coordinator, and you may laugh and chuckle a little bit thinking, geez, yeah, this happens all the time. And trust me, from my experience in the sporting world, this happens all the time. Here's a yellow, or a caution statement, where you should kind of go, as a photographer thinking about shooting an event. We don't have a budget for this, but we just thought we could do this. Or, maybe you could take a few pictures. Or, well, you know what, we're really not looking for all that. When I talk about critical infrastructure and, getting a professional host, no, we're not looking for that, Tim. We just want somebody to go snap a few pictures, email us the stuff. And, so those are kind of cautionary tales right off the bat. If I'm going to be a part of an international event, or an event, or even working for a tournament, or for a kids event, whatever, I'm going to look at that. And if I see that yellow kind of, I have my, basically my spidey senses go off, if I can say, when I get asked that question. And then the last one is, you could use this event to build your portfolio. That's a red light. That's a stop for me. If somebody tells me that, shooting their event, I can build my portfolio, it's basically saying you're not going to pay. We want you to volunteer, and you can use your images. We're going to use them too, of course, free of charge. And it's not all about the money. Believe me, I do a lot of charity things where I don't get paid at all. But if I hear that you could use this to build your portfolio, it's a red light. It's a stop for me, and it's almost a no-go. So back to here, the most common question I get asked: how much do you charge, or how much would you charge for an event? I'm going to tell you, folks, as a photographer, never answer that question. You're going to look at me and go, what the hell are you talking about? You have to give them a quote. Well, never answer that question. The way you turn around and approach this from a photographer's point of view, and if you're an event coordinator, you can look at this and go, okay, right off the bat, I can alleviate those cautionary questions, or install confidence in the person I'm negotiating with. This is what you should answer, I should say, as a photographer. Never answer, oh, I would charge this, I would charge that. Your only answer should be, folks, is what is your photography budget for the event? That's critically important, because then if the person's going to tell you, well, and I can probably say 50% of the time, maybe even a little harder, is that people will say, well, we don't have a budget for photography. We never thought about it. We never included a media event. So if you're an event coordinator, I think one of the most critical things you can do as a coordinator is to turn around and establish a budget for media, be it a small, modest, whatever it might be. Establish some kind of budget. And after hopefully this presentation, you're going to kind of have an understanding of what exactly you're looking for, and how you can integrate it. But photographers, for the love of God, if you're responding to how much do you charge, ask them, what's your budget for the event? Because if they say, and here's a little bit of, a little bit of business practice. If you come in and say you quote $2,000 or $400 or whatever, and I'll disclose some things, I ask you to keep it in confidence. For example, the Hockey Hall of Fame pays $300 for a PGB, which is per game basis. So if you shoot a hockey game for the Hockey Hall of Fame for archival imagery, because that's what they're after, to store these images and archive them, you're getting $300 cash. So that's their budget for the event. So when you go to an event and you ask them what their budget is, it gives you an opportunity to decide whether or not you'll be able to work within that framework, to know how much they have, which is really, really important. I won't beat a dead horse on it, but I can tell you right off the start, if, we all have to put milk in our kids' cereal. And for events, you have responsibilities to committees to stay within budget. I know sponsorship is going to be a premium. I know the post-COVID world is going to be very, very difficult as far as where we go budget-wise. So, you know, it's critical that we all work together, but at the same time, professional photographers, you don't work for free. I mean, if you want to volunteer your time, that's fine, but still understand the scope of what you're going to get yourself into. And I can tell you, one of the big things as a photographer is you're going to have to turn around and learn to say the word no. I got offered a substantial amount of money. I'll be candid with everybody here today. I got offered $10,000 to shoot a wedding for a National Hockey League linesman. 10,000 bucks. So right off the bat, my wife goes, "Boy, we're going to get some new curtains." No. Bottom line comes down to is I said no. And the reason I said no is he told me what his budget was for the event. But when I got into a little more of the discussion with them and negotiations and dealing with that, I found out exactly what they wanted. And basically it was $100,000 worth of work for 10 grand. Sounds really impressive. Sounds like a lot of money. And I can tell you it's one of the best decisions I made by walking away from it. And, you know, with these caution questions that come up, or, you know, the portfolio questions, if you decide that it's not for you, or if you decide the photographer is too expensive and that photographer or the services that they're offering can't operate within your budget as a coordinator, then you have to move on. And ultimately you have to find somebody that's going to provide you the services that you need for your event. So photographers, if there's one thing I can say to you, professional, amateur, and all that, when you get asked that, I'm going to beat this horse one more time, is what is your photography budget for the event? When Brad and I got into negotiations with the major series lacrosse team, we discussed this. You know, I've known Brad for many, many years, so he's a man of his word. So we were able to turn around and work within the framework of what our budget was for the year and provide what services. All right, so moving on to some of the more interesting parts and not just talking about budget. As a director of photography and coordinating my photographers from world-class events to tournaments to minor stuff, I can tell you that the way I approach it is what you're seeing here on the screen right now. Is I'm going to look at it, and I'll come back to this a number of times. And is this in a specific order? No, it's not. It's in an order for me to talk about it without, bouncing around all over the place and completely confusing people. But as a director of photography, or as a photographer, or as an event coordinator, because I was a director of photography for the 2013 World Cup, Lacrosse Cup. It involved teams from multinational nations. It involved logistics. Like I can't even describe some, and I will talk to you about it today, but some of the difficulties we encounter: interpreters, languages, visas, locations, events, etc. So this is not in a specific order, but here's what I look at in general as a director of photography. If I'm going to assign guys, gals to an event, I'm looking at the type of event, obviously the location, the logistics are involved. We talk briefly about the budget and the accreditation process, which is kind of a critical, important thing. But moving along with this, like I said, use your Q&A if you got some questions. That fire hydrant example is good. We got an hour to talk about a topic that, quite frankly, one of these little areas, like the type of event, as we get into it, I could talk about for 4 or 5 hours and have on some of the training and sessions we do. So I'm going to kind of give you an overview and some understandings. And I'll make this available, by the way. I'll email this to anybody. There's nothing that I'm putting in here that I wouldn't share with any of you, and I appreciate your attention. So what I look at specifically, and again, no specific orders, the type of event is what you need to understand is what sport are you covering? I mean, is it lacrosse? Is it hockey? Is it swimming, basketball, football, baseball, whatever? But with every sport or every event that you're going to be shooting, the events within that event are really critically important in you determining your budget as a coordinator or as a photographer. And what I mean by that is during the 2013 World Cup, not only did we turn around and have the World Cup itself, but we also had what they called a lacrosse festival, minor lacrosse festival, being held within the event itself. So not only do you have 2 major fields, there was actually 3 fields. There was a practice field, and there was 2 AstroTurf fields and a stadium where the main events occurred. But we had another 3 or 4 lacrosse fields that were around where they were hosting minor events, and it was a festival. So that included hundreds and hundreds of games. I can tell you in any given day, I think in one day, there was something like 150 different games. Now imagine if you're the coordinator and you're the director of photography or the photographer attending this event, how do you cover all that? How do you deploy personnel? So what you need is not only the event and the sport you're covering, but you have to have a real good understanding when you're dealing with your coordinator as to what events are within that. Even like I shot I was lucky enough to shoot for Team USA and to be their photographer for the World Cup event in 2019. And I wanted to know what other events were going on. Am I just shooting the game, or are there other things that are involved with the team that I need to be aware of, or with the event? And the scope of these events are also really, really important, because it can be something really small, or it can be something absolutely massive. The NHL All-Star Game is a good example. The NBA basketball All-Star Game. Not only do you have the game, which sometimes can be the actual anticlimactic type event, but you have all the preparatory events, the skills competitions, the interviews, the media days, the one-on-ones, the crowd interaction. Some place run fan favorite type things where you'll see at the Stanley Cup Finals or the lacrosse finals, major events and tournaments, they have all sorts of outside vendors. Like, are you going to be required to shoot the vendors or displays, the interactions, the sponsors? All these things are critically important. I'm the event coordinator for Hockey Night in Canada, and I shot their play-on series, which was the world's largest, in the Guinness Book of World Records, street hockey event. Well, one of the critical things I had to say to the photographers I assigned to the event was, guys, I need some images of athletes as they enter or cross frame the sponsors logos, the CBC logos, the Sportsnet logos, the Hockey Night in Canada, their major sponsors. And I won't give any of them a plug here because, hey, anyways, long story short is you may have to do that. They may want some sponsor banner pictures in there. I'll show you as I do a little bit of a presentation of one of the things that a little bit of trick of the trade, so you can try and incorporate, you can kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, as a photographer. So when you get all this information with your coordinator, your event coordinator, sorry, Brad, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to add, like, from the event operator side or the team side, and just actually supporting what Tim just said. One of the areas that Tim and I spoke about prior to engaging each other was, I always seem to be at parts of the game or parts of our event for our Brooklin Lacrosse Club where I was like, wow, I wish I had a photographer here for this. I wish I had this. And I think one of the biggest things that I realized was that I needed to share the game and daily itinerary with my photographers and support staff, to make sure that they were in the know and understanding what was going on at what times. And it's been huge. So I just wanted to speak to that support, Tim, just because I know how logistically it can be a bit of a nightmare, but I make sure Tim and Sean know when my locker room opens up so they can have access and get ready. Like it's key and it's important. So, and that's just on a team scale. So I can't even imagine, an event scale.
Thanks, Brad. That's 100% correct. And as a photographer, if you're the kind of person that arrives at an event 2 minutes before the event or 15 or a half hour before the event, I tell you, I don't want to work with you because you haven't done your preparation. When I was in school, I had an English teacher one time who had a big board that said I can't even, I better do the math here, the 6 P's or the 7 P's, whatever it works out to. But he said, proper preparation and planning prevents piss poor performance. Wow, I got that out without stumbling, which is a miracle for this photographer. But I can tell you, it's critically important. The pre-planning is huge, and we'll talk about it. And I'm looking at my time here, so we got to get moving. So all this begins your pre-planning as to your logistical support options for the event, what you're going to do. Logistics are the number one thing, how you're going to coordinate that. It doesn't matter whether you're a single photographer shooting a single game, you're going to have to do the logistics. And the last point here about your point of contact, which is mission critical to avoid chasing, what that means is this. I've dealt with committees. When I shot the World Cup lacrosse event, I was great. In 2019, it was wonderful. My point of contact was one person with Team USA, who was their media coordinator, who I dealt with. So I was able to deal with one person and understand what my requirements were for the event. Being the fact I was co-shooting with a magazine, I spoke to the editor. The editor told me what they expected. And I'll show you a little pictorial example of this rather than just staring at a screen and hearing some guy go blah, 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 blah. So I'll get into the meat and potatoes, I promise. But it's critical that you identify that one person who you're going to speak to. Otherwise, guys and gals, I'm going to tell you, at an event, you're going to be chasing them. You're going to be running, oh, I need this, I need that. Don't do it. Find out who your point of contact is. And I'll give you an example. When we talked about accreditation process, the 2013 World Cup, we had a point of contact. I was the co-director of photography, which I'll never do again. And the reason I'll never do it again is because people don't work the way I work in a lot of cases. Yeah, I have a type A personality. I can work with people, no issues there whatsoever. The problem was the guy that I was working with, didn't know shit from syphilis, and pardon my turnaround in French there, but the bottom line come down to is this individual couldn't organize anything. And to give you an example, all the photographers who we had hired to shoot the event, some world-class people, arrived at the event, the location, which was held in Oshawa, Ontario, and they got held up by security, and security wouldn't let them into the media center because the individual I was working with didn't get the photographers their credentials in basically prior to the event, so security wouldn't let them in. So how do you get access to a secure media center on a world-class event when you don't even have a credential? The credentials are actually in the media room. Doesn't do me a lot of good there. So that point of principal contact is really important to alleviate all the logistical concerns there. The location of the event is critical as well. It dictates what kind of equipment you're going to bring, who you're going to assign to it, what you have to cover. Is it an arena? Is it a stadium, a field? Is there parking? We talked about that. Security, credentials. Any event photographer that's shooting that you're hiring as an event coordinator, or you're the photographer, make sure you understand what your access is. All access pass, if you're the event photographer or coordinator, is critical to have. I've shot for Getty Images. I've shot when I did the World Cup with Team USA, I had all access. So that's critical as well. Excuse me. Know your environmental factors. Are they going to be a factor in your shooting? If you're shooting in a stadium, if it's an indoor stadium or an indoor arena, great. The environmental factors should hopefully be consistent. You never know. But the bottom line comes down to, if you're shooting outside, have a look at the weather forecast for the day. Maybe a little thing. I printed them off all the time, knowing what my weather could be. During the World Cup last year in 2019, I went from blistering sun, freezing cold, pouring rain, hail, and then it got blistering sun again. So it was a battle. Myself and my camera shooting that event, we were battling, and I'll show you a few things too. So understand these factors are critical. The lighting. Yeah, there's lots of lightning for sure. But the lighting, what kind of lighting do you have? What time are the games scheduled? Are you going to be shooting under lights? What's the arena lighting? Are you shooting through glass? Is the glass dirty? Is it clean? All these sorts of things are critically important to understand as a photographer. And as an event coordinator, the media room is critically important for you as well. So I'm going to bypass a couple of things here and show you a few things. Let me just move this logo here. These are my notes for the 2019 World Cup, where I was shooting for Team USA. So this is the Trent University Stadium, and I forget the name of the stadium offhand, I apologize. But this is the stadium. So what I was able to do in advance, and this is critically important for me to understand, is to take a look at the stadium where I was going to be shooting. First of all, why it's critically important is I pre-scout any area that I can turn around and do. Now, it's sometimes tough when you're flying into an area, but you can obtain schematics. But what's really important for me is to understand where I'm going to be shooting. So can you see, Brad, can you see my little cursor that I'm moving around here?
Yep, and I think you're talking about Trent University?
Yeah, so and
Justin Chu, I think it's called.
Thank you, the Justin Chu Stadium. So here's the first and foremost thing. First of all, to get in security, etc., to come through here, but I'll show you some things that concern me. Now, here's my requirement for the event. Now, I'd already spoke to the magazine, Team USA, and I understood what kind of a deadline I'm on, and I'll talk about that. But on the upper left corner, here's my assignment. So for pregame, they wanted 5 images uploaded to the FTP server so that they could get out and distribute. Right after the pregame, they wanted 5 images. During the half of the event, this is a world-class event, remember, they wanted 5 images transmitted. At the end of the game, this is the upper left column here, 10 to 14 images had to be transmitted at the conclusion of the game. They usually want that in about 30 minutes, fully captioned, fully ready to go, up, boom, out, so they can turn around and do that. Interesting, I'll talk about the facility and why this is important to pre-plan the event as a photographer, or if you're an event coordinator, folks, look at your schematic of your event, take out an overlay, draw it, photograph it, whatever, photocopy it, and decide where you're going to place your photographers. And I'm going to talk to you about this. The event photographers, I wasn't the event photographer for that. They had hired a separate event photography staff that worked there. Really nice people, I might add. But their access, you'll see in the bottom here, it says event photographers or photogs. They had basically from the offensive zone to the defensive zone on this side of the field. That's where their area of operations were. Right behind them is a running track. So you have the bleachers, the press box, and then right here is a running track. So forward of the running track is the side of the field. That's where the event photographers were allowed to go. That's where their credentials allowed them access to. So I had to understand, I have all access. Where do I go? How am I going to work with this? And you know what? I'm not going to be a jerk about it. I need to get my job done. I'm shooting for Team USA and the magazine. So I knew I needed to look at some of my angles. So you'll see where it says P1, that's a photo position 1. I knew that when I'm here, if I'm shooting, and here, right here, you'll see a 300 millimeter and a 70 to 200. For the photographers that are on the seminar, and I won't bore everybody with schematics and technical details, but the bottom line is those are the 2 lenses I had at that particular photo position, because I knew I could cover deep. Canada started here, the United States started here in this end. So I knew basically I could get the coverage that I wanted to turn around and get. Having in mind, when you scout a location, you need to turn around and look at problematic areas as well. The running track, there's tents, where the fans, the bleachers, here's the American fans, here's the Canadian fans that are on this side here. Where am I going to go before the game? Well, before the game, I'm right here. See where it says PG? I know that I'm going to shoot pregame stuff because all the US players are here shooting on their goaltender, warming up, and they're facing this way. So if I'm here, all I'm going to get is their back. So I moved to here to pregame. I changed my lens selection here, 70 to 200 or 300 mil, and I'm shooting into the field, getting the warm-ups, going to get a few shots in behind the net. All right. As the game progresses, I get to go where nobody else does, which is wonderful. I get to work just off the bench where you'll see P2. And all this is planned before the game. I've walked this. I know exactly where I'm going to be and what I can get. And then here, again, my lens selection changed a little bit here. 70 to 200 to 300 mil and a wide angle, an open lens for when I get in real tight or I want those wide angle shots, get in some field shots. And then there's Team USA's bench. Here's Team Canada's bench. Now, the interesting part was, and I won't make any comments to get me in trouble, but the lovely people from FILA, or the Federation of International Lacrosse Association, they had a no-go zone, which was in behind here. Here's FILA's main area for their officials and their dignitaries, and then they had this no-go area between the benches. And I can tell you, if I wanted to move from the Canadian bench to the American, whoops, sorry. Yeah, of course, technical details. Sorry, bear with me. If I wanted to move from the Canadian bench to the American bench, sorry, I'll get this up here. I could not go through this no-go area. If I did, I'd get thrown out of the event. And trust me, they enforced it. I'd have to go all the way around, which was a pain in the ass, and go to this side here. So quite frankly, I knew that, that walk all around the entire stadium, through areas, through tents, through tent access areas to an athlete entrance area, there was just no possibility of doing that. So I had to understand that this area, pretty much where Team Canada was, I wasn't shooting for Team Canada, certainly going to get them in the imagery, was off limits. So, this may look like a lot to you, but it's not. At every National Hockey League event, you have to know where you're going to be positioned. In NFL and in major events, as an event coordinator, you have to understand, okay, where am I going to position these photographers? Do I have local media attending? Where am I going to position them? This is critical, because if you leave it as a free-for-all, you're going to get your photographers who are going to encroach. And trust me, encroachment is a big word for a professional photographer. You're going to push the boundaries all the time. But in major events or professional events, you really need to coordinate where you're going to put these people and understand how many people you have attending, what media agency they represent, and where you're going to put them. You don't necessarily have to worry about, getting them the best angle, but you do need to worry about where you're going to assign these photographers. If you're listening to me and you're a pro photographer, this is our bread and butter, folks. You need to get the best possible area for the shot. Being a photographer, the number one thing, and Brad Smith, the former director of Sports Illustrated, a director of photography, says all the time, you really need to be a problem solver. You need to know where you go, and getting different angles is important. If you shoot from the same spot all the time, you're going to get the same photos. So you want to vary your portfolio on what you're shooting and presenting, especially if it's to a wire agency, where you're going with this. So I'm cognizant of time here, but this is basically what I do. I pen it out. And I understand, what the problems are or are not in this area. And I'm going to show you a couple of things here, if I can get the technical aspects of my computer working. So you saw the pregame stuff. This is a program, by the way, and some lucky person's going to win a copy of a license of this program. This is Photo Mechanic, which is a workflow management tool for photographers. If you're an event coordinator and you're not a photographer, and you're running an event, you need to get Photo Mechanic. And by the way, I am not paid by Photo Mechanic. I'm not paid by these people. They don't sponsor me. However, I have a great relationship with them and have known them for years. And I make it mandatory that all the photographers I work with have to have a licensed copy of Photo Mechanic. It is the industry leader. Anyways, I'll show you the problems I had. One of the things I talked about, and you'll see when I went to that map, I had, I'm just gonna go back a bit. Pardon me for jumping around. But see this area here? I had marked these things off here. This area here was brutal. And I said, FT background. I won't tell you what the F stands for, but I will tell you the T stands for terrible. I'm responsible as a photographer for all my background. So if I shoot an athlete, whatever's in the background, I'm responsible for what's in that photo, what's in that image. So one of I look to say, what is a terrible background that I never want to include in a photo? Well, that terrible background, folks, is right here, a set of porta potties on the lacrosse field. To show you here, there it is there. So no editor in the world is going to want to see a bunch of shitters in a background of a world-class event. Pardon my French again. They're not going to want to see that. So that's an area I'm going to avoid. I took the photo to show you that when I scout an area, I took it for myself, quite frankly, to say, oh God, like, you know, when I'm shooting at a different aperture here that I can try to blur the background, but they're still porta potties. Why they would ever put them adjacent to a national event, you know what, I don't know. I can't answer that question. So that was certainly problematic for me in regards to that. All right, just to show you, and I know a few of you guys and gals were great enough to send me some direct messages last night. He said, I'm not a lacrosse shooter. Fair enough. I get it. I understand that and all that. But this kind of diagram of where you're going to go and where you're going to have access to is critically important, because, you know, you'll see I get really anal, right? I write down what lenses I'm using, what angles I'm covering, but this is important. You know, the event photographers cannot access benches. They're off limits, which is my lower right corner in blue. So I know that no other event photographer, which is unfortunate for them, quite frankly, they can't have access to Team USA's bench. So I'm not going to be in competition with anybody on that location for a shooting thing. And see this area here, OP, the press room, for me to turn around and 5 images before the game, 5 images at the half, for me to shoot these images, go on the half, walk all the way to the press room, it was so far away I would need, you know, to pack a lunch and take a bus. And I'm being facetious, but bottom line is I couldn't get there. I could not get to the press room in time to do these things. So I had a problem. I had to decide where I was going to work. So I set up a makeshift work area. You guys and gals that have ever shot events, you'll know sometimes you're going to be, you know, Ryan McCullough, the photographer for the Toronto Rock, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, professional soccer team and organizations, and one of my shooters, you know, he sometimes will work in a stairwell because you just don't have time. And I'm going to show you a little trade secret here, folks. If I can do this. So being cognizant that I have to work in a multitude of different disciplines. Yeah, if I can find this here. Sorry, bear with me. My apologies.
Are you trying to bring something back up that's not on the PowerPoint?
I forgot where I put it. So this is my portable little workstation that can go anywhere with me in the world. A stairwell, a washroom, and I've worked in some washrooms. Let me rephrase that. This is my little, basically portable little workstation that I made up. You can see there's my laptop, Photo Mechanics in the background. I have a little light. It extends back there. There is a roster. But one of the most important little things I have, a tool for me, is this little sucker right here. And I did say sucker. It's a timer I bought at Canadian Tire. It's a kitchen timer that I can program anytime. Whoops. And the reason I use that is because in between the half, in between the game, if I'm shooting, for example, a NHL game or an OHL game, or OJHL game, in between the periods, I have 15 minutes. So I know I need to turn around and get to the press room or get to wherever I'm going to go, and I get 15 minutes. So the moment that buzzer goes to end the half, to end the period, to end whatever, same thing with Brooklin Lacrosse, when I'm making my way from where my shooting location is to my uploading station to get some stuff out on social media, I activate that timer, and it's a countdown. Can you use a watch? Sure you can. I mean, you know, you can use whatever you want, but it's a little timer, and it lets me know exactly how much time I have till I have to get my butt back out to my shooting location. This is simply a little box I bought from Walmart. It's a storable, it's where I got it, from Walmart, and I can put all my stuff inside here. I bought a little light, a little desk lamp that clips on here so I can illuminate the area. I have an extension cord that comes out the side here. You can see it here, and I just run it to wherever the power outlet is. I have my portable chair, which I've just replaced with a new little fango dango device, and I have my you know, all my card readers, etc. So this is something I've done to alleviate that running around having to turn around and get to a press room. Again, working at different areas. So you see the left here? This is a thing made by Think Tank. It's extremely expensive, but nonetheless, I shot an NHL charity golf tournament. So my office as a photographer was the golf cart. So this is, you can see the back of this. It's a simply little, basically, I can't even think of the name of the things, what they're called, but it's a little box, plastic box that I've got on the back of the golf cart. I zipped it down with the Velcro, and I have my computer, and I'm basically hotspotting off my phone on the side here to get my images out. Basically what I had to do, my responsibility was to shoot right away. They come up, all the foursomes come up. I shoot basically a group picture of the foursome, then I shoot every single player of the tournament a tee shot, like a PGA tee shot, and then I get them out on social media really, really quick, and I'm doing it all from the back of my golf cart. I was shooting in a photography office at one of the rinks that, the photographer's position to shoot was a wonderful little thing with little biohazardous chemical barrels beside me. And I said, yeah, I'm not working from there. So I went up into the gondola area. You can see that here. And there's my little timer. And I set up my little workstation to allow me to turn on work from anywhere. Because sometimes you're just not going to be at the location of the event. The media rooms are not going to be conducive to where you're shooting. So if you're an event coordinator, please make our lives easier and locate your media room as basically as close as you can to the actual event. You do get lucky. There are some media rooms, and there's my lovely photo editor there, Sean Muir, and a crew that I'm working with. Here's a media room set up for an all-star event we're shooting, which are a bunch of tables and chairs and are set up. Here is a media room in Buffalo, and I'm just showing you the differences. I shot at an international event where I talked to the event coordinator, and they said, Tim, what do you need for logistics? And I said, well, here's what we need. So they brought in this trailer. This is a Ministry of Natural Resources trailer that they use at major fire scenes events. And they brought it in, and it was exclusive use to the media and for the photographers. So this was an unbelievable facility. It's all hardwired here with internet connections that are plugged externally. I mean, that's the media section. This is what it looked like. And they brought it in underneath the arena where the Zamboni comes in. Again, I don't know what, if you're hosting a lacrosse event, whether you can get this kind of facility or you just designate a room for the photographers. And here's our specific work area. I was working with one of my photographers, and that's our work area. We had a whiteboard, we had internet access. It was absolutely hardwired, fantastic facility, but you may not always have that. But I can tell you as an event coordinator, if you're bringing photography into your event, you really need to turn around and think about where you're going to put these guys and gals, as well as your media. If it's an international event, I won't slam an international organization like Hockey Canada because I can get in a lot of trouble. But I can tell you, I shot a World Junior event where they disabled the internet only for the Hockey Canada photographer. He's the only person that had access to it, which is very disappointing. We all were shut out, so I have a portable router I was able to jury rig and plug in and give everybody internet access. And there was no media room, so people were working from everywhere, including the National Hockey League scouts that were there. So they were more than appreciative for us to be able to set something up. So think about the infrastructure when you're running these events. I got to move on because
we may go a tad longer than this. There's pretty good engagement here, but one of the questions that come across, when you've got to get these images out fast during an event, how much editing do you actually end up doing, like cropping and sharpening, and do you batch process?
Great question. And you know what, Brad, will you remind me? I will address that very, very shortly. So
okay, yep.
If I don't say come back to it. So folks, this is courtesy of Ian Goodall, who's a photographer for the Oshawa Generals, who's their head photographer. But at every National Hockey League event, the proprietary shooting position, and if you're coordinating an event, please understand this, whoever is shooting on behalf of your organization gets proprietary shooting credentials, gets access to the best shooting spots. That's critically important. You're paying them. You don't care what some person shooting from the local newspaper. I mean, obviously you want to make sure they're looked after, but your photographer who you've paid to attend the event, or photographers, need the proprietary or the best shooting locations. So this is how the NHL does it. This is how major junior hockey, and you can do the same thing. It doesn't matter. You can draw out a diagram of your facility and do the exact same thing. They break it down into the agency represented. There it is there, the name of the photographer, the location, divided by period assignments. The NHL does the same thing. So for example, it's first, second, and third period. Ian Goodall, who's their photographer, is going to be in photo position 4 for the first period. And you can look, there it is. It's an upper riser position. Basically, that's a position in the stands, elevated, shooting down on the actual facility itself. Great facility, but or great location, but you have to have a long lens, obviously, right? And then in second period, he's shooting at location 2, which is through a photo hole in the glass, getting the angle here. In period 3, he's shooting position 1, which is off to the opposite side. So he shoots for the Austria Generals. So he's looking for the offensive action when basically, if you're a football photographer, a baseball photographer, same thing. You're going to go, if you're shooting for a team, you're going to look at your team on the offense where they're coming at you, right? So, because nobody wants to shoot players' numbers in their backs. It doesn't do well for photography. And I'll talk about, sorry, I keep hitting that mouse, which is too sensitive. I'll talk about what the question that was just asked, which is an absolutely fantastic question. Okay, first of all, one of the most critically important things as a photographer is, as far as I'm concerned, and as an event coordinator, and why we're giving it away, is this program here, which is Photo Mechanic. So let me tell you about the World Cup Lacrosse. So what I do, and very, very quickly to show you, this is workflow management for photographers. And if you're an event coordinator, understand this, because you need to be realistic about how many images and what you want to do with these images, what the time frames are. We're now, social media, you'll see in my opening comments, I said social media has changed the game of photography. Yeah, 100%. And how it's changed the game of photography is really, it's revolutionary. And what I mean by that is now at any event, you have iPhones. Who doesn't have a cell phone nowadays? Well, a few people don't, but 99.99% of the population has a cell phone. At an Olympic event or a National Hockey League event, in the first 15 to 20 minutes of game action, they estimate an estimated 20,000 images will get transmitted from the event from people in the stands. Take a look at it. Go to a concert, right? All you people are very, you're well-versed. You're in the real world. What do you see at a concert, right? You get artists getting pissed off because all they see is people holding up their phones, filming it. They're not watching the concert or the action. They're filming it. They want to get it out on YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, all these Twitter, whatever. So you have to understand that and be cognizant of that. So how do I control it? So the first thing I'm going to tell you is, if you're a small event, what you can do is, to give you an example at my wedding, before digital age, of course, not aging myself, we put portable cameras on every table, and we told people, take all the pictures you want. At the end of the wedding, we collected those cameras up, sent them in to be processed. And I can tell you, some of the best pictures from my wife and I's wedding was what came from those cameras, because they're not posed, they're spontaneous, they're fun pictures. A lot of awful ones too, but the bottom line, we got a good collection. So if you're running a real small event and you don't have all the infrastructure or the budget, what you can do is you can put out a notice to people, put a notice on your door saying, hey, email us your photos, or, and I hate emailing photos, but, put your photos at a Dropbox or, Facebook, if you're going to do that. I'm not a big lover of that, but give them somewhere that they can share their photos. So you're getting, in essence, coverage of an event, sometimes a large coverage, some good, some bad. And you're not having to pay for that coverage, so to speak. So if you allow that, that's one thing you can do. But as an event coordinator, people are talking about, okay, how do I get these images out? So I had to get up 5 images before the game. So if I go in, what I do is I shoot these images. These are pre-game images of the crowd. And what I've done is Photo Mechanic allows you to put in, and I'm not going to promise.
Are you looking at, we can see your PowerPoint still.
My PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you just, you might have to unshare your screen.
How's that?
No.
Okay.
You might have to unshare and then share and select the Photo Mechanic.
Gotcha. How's this?
Yep. Perfect.
See Photo Mechanic now?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Brad. Sorry, folks. So here's Photo Mechanic. So what this program allows me to do is I shoot a bunch of photos, but prior to shooting the photo is I'm setting up what they call the stationary pad. So what this is, I set up all this in advance. This is set for the Ontario Junior Hockey League. I apologize. But I'm filling all this information in. And what it does is it pre-fills all this. So this is all pre-filled. All this information here. Here you go here. Peterborough, Ontario, August 10th, Women's Lacrosse U19 World Championships, gold medal game, USA. All this is filled in. So this is pre-done. So I'm going to globally caption this. I'm not going to put in, identify this person, that person. This is all done. So I shoot the photos. I ingest them. In other words, I import them to this. This is what comes up here. I'll select the ones I want to get here, or whatever photo I want to turn around and put out. And again, when it brought in, all these photos are captioned. You see here? So all these photos, all these captions are put in already. I can go through the ones I want. I can select the ones I want. I think I use this one here. Obviously the good red, white, and blue in the United States, for some very patriotic fans. I wanted these to go out on the wire. So all I did is selected them. And I'll just show you. This is just random. This is how fast Photo Mechanic works. So these are the 3 photos I want. This is the program Photo Mechanic. I highlight them and I'm gonna go File, and you can upload the photos. I can upload them. I just uploaded a bunch of stuff to National Hockey League for the upcoming draft. So here it is here. All I do is hit send, and these photos go out. I can upload them to a website. I can upload them to local media. So that's how I get these images out. A word of caution. I shot an event with a very young photographer who was his first professional event. It was the American Prospects game for the National Hockey League. And I was shooting single mode, and I was click, 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 shooting photos. This guy was on full auto with a very advanced camera, 1DX he was using, which I have as well. And he was shooting like, brr, 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 brr. So 2,000 or 3,000 images in one period. Well, if you're shooting 2,000 or 3,000 images before a game, and you got to go through these photos deciding, I need 5 photos up contractually, right? A lot of you guys don't have to worry about contractual obligations. But the bottom line is, if I have to select 5 photos and I have to call or go through 2,000 images, I'm not going to meet the deadline. I'm going to be in panic mode completely. And so this is what the program allows you to do. You can pre-fill any information in here, as little or as you want, and these photos all go with that information contained. It's called captioning. So an editor is going to get all this information. When we get into different sports, obviously things will change in regards to identifying the player, the action, etc. But if you don't want to do that, and you want a global caption about the tournament you're running, the event you're running, this is how you do it. I promise you, if you're interested, you can send me an email, and when I do my next Photo Mechanic presentation, I have some YouTube things. I'll send you some links. You can turn around and get used to the program. But by far, folks, it is without question. And you'll see I import, you'll see my screen right here. Here's how I break up my photos. So I shoot all my pregame stuff. All the photos go in here. First period, lacrosse, it would be first half. First period, second period, third period, overtime, my processing and editing, all this sort of stuff. I put them all here. And then what I'm putting in the social media, and here it is here. This is what I put for social media for the World Cup. And you can see, right, I'm contractually obligated to put these photos here. Here's how I did it. And they're all this stuff is captioned. They're pre-captioned, so I didn't have to do any of this. By the way, let's just say that you're having to identify this player. This is set for hockey, but here's what Photo Mechanic can do for you. I can't type this out. I don't have the time. I'm just going to do this. Say this was a Wellington Duke player, and that athlete is 13. If I type in this and enter some codes, that's what comes up. The player's name is pre-filled. We have a pre-filled database, and I look after that. It's another subject for another day. It's called code replacement, but all the codes are in there, right? The game action stuff is there that I put in there. Periods are in here. I know I'm probably losing a lot of people. Don't worry about it. I'm not trying to. All I'm telling you is this program does all of this. It is a professional workflow management tool, and it's designed to turn around and look at a bunch of images really quickly and to work with those images. And you can edit them later. We'll talk about how that works. But to answer the question somebody asked is how I get through that is I shoot my pregame stuff. I select the ones I want to get. I've already pre-captioned it. It imports them automatically, and it's as simple as selecting the photos I want. Yeah, I want this, I want that. You know, they say I want a crowd shot. I want the pregame lineup. You know, all these sorts of things. There's Team Canada. You know, I want the lineups. Okay, well then we're going to shoot that. I'll select them, and then I get it out by simply pressing upload or email. If you don't have, you have to have internet access for sure. You can hotspot your phones. So that's what I basically do. Okay, Brad, I'm going to switch off this for a second here. Make sure I get my presentation back up. Can you see my presentation, Brad, or do I have to?
You gotta yeah, keep going. Unscreen. I think you gotta switch between the screen share back and forth each time. I can see it now. Yep. Okay. Now I'm gonna warn everybody. We're definitely gonna go a little bit longer here, but actually, Tim, the numbers of attendees have actually gone up. So you know, for our attendees, we're gonna keep going on this. I think it's pretty interesting. So I can see a bit of behind the work action when I'm usually engaged in other stuff during Brooklyn games.
So folks, this information is like being at the bottom of Niagara Falls, having a teacup, trying to get a friggin' drink of water. It's a ton of info coming at you. And I appreciate that, but slow it down. We'll break it down part by part. I'll try not to go too far over. But what I'm telling you is, you know, First thing you do look after the logistics. Okay, Photo Mechanic is an essential workflow management tool. I'm not being paid by Photo Mechanic, but I tell you, the relationship I have with these folks is critical. One lucky person's going to win a license. It's a licensed software program. There are millions of online tutorials about it. That's the address, camerabits.com. So it's camerabits.com, or just Google Photo Mechanic. You can Google it. You can YouTube it. There are thousands of videos. I've made a bunch of videos on how to take Photo Mechanic as a novice photographer right from the start. I'll share that with you. Just send me an email.
We've got the winner already.
Yeah, you got the, okay, perfect. So you can do that. This is a little bit of plug for them. It's a speed organization. Speed is critical. It used to be that we could shoot an event, any event, and get 24 hours. Then we got into, no, you know, you're shooting during the game, you're handing your photo card off to a runner, as we call it for photographers. The runner runs it to an editor if you're lucky enough. 90% of the time I'm editing myself, which I showed you what my little work locations were there. And the editor would work on it and get those images out. Now we're going into remote transmitters where my camera has a wireless transmitter. So I press the button and it gets transmitted anywhere I want in the world through FTP or through the internet, basically, without getting too technical. Now we're into plugins. So I can, at the NHL now, I can, certain photo positions, depending on the agency you're working for, the NLL, lacrosse agencies, you can plug in. And some of us have that luxury, some of us don't. Sometimes they won't share that plug-in. It's only for the team photographer, whatever. But this program, if you're a professional photographer, photojournalist, or if you shoot weddings or events or whatever, or you're an event coordinator wanting to coordinate all those photos that come in, use this program. Can I say that enough? You know, and it sounds like I'm a salesman. I promise you, I'm not getting a commission. The beautiful thing about the people at Photo Mechanic, it's like, you know, and I'm not going to butcher the, you know, the declarations of the United States, but it's of the people, by the people, for the people. Photographers, Photo Mechanic is designed for the photographers, by the photographers, and it's all about the photographers and editors as well. So it's an amazing program. You can try the program, you can install it, no risk. You don't have to put a credit card down to do any of that, and it's free for 90 days. I get these are very difficult economic times. How much is Photo Mechanic? It's $130 or $128 now, US. For a license, and it doesn't expire. You can use it as long as you use a license copy, obviously. But if you work with them, if you're in economic crisis right now, if you're having a hard time making ends meet, these people are fantastic. You simply call them up, tell them, and I'm sure they're going to give you a license copy for you to be able to use. You can use a free copy for 90 days to get used to it, to see if it's for you. It can be overwhelming, but if you break it down into small chunks, it can turn around and go really, really well for you. All right, enough. Let's move on here. Because I'm looking at my time, and I appreciate the fact you're letting me go over a little bit, because there's a ton of information. When I normally present this, guys and gals, sorry, I know it's a ton of information coming at you, but I usually get, some of the stuff takes 4 hours or 8 hours, or I do it over 2 days. But let's look at the workflow process. Pre-game, what are you going to do as a photographer, as an event coordinator? This is what you're going to, if you're an event coordinator, look at it from this way. This is what I want. So this is what I say as a director of photography to my photographers. Pre-game, locker room shots. Now with COVID being a thing, whether you have access to those athletes, that's something in our game that's going to change. The photographer's access to locker rooms, to dressing rooms is probably going to not exist. I shot the university finals, the CIAU or the U Sports university finals. Obviously, I'm not allowed to go into the women's locker room. You know, I can't do that before a game where people are changing. That's just not allowed, which is fine. I get my access and where I can and can't go. But for hockey shots, some of the best shots we have are going to be those pregame, those locker room shots, athletes warming up off the field. These are what I'm looking at as my set list, or what I'm going to shoot, right? Coaching staff, their preparations, their conversations with players. It's a real cool shot to be able to take a picture of a coach talking to an athlete, maybe in some secluded area in a stadium or off the bench or some private. It's a really unique shot. Just be mindful of their privacy and, you know, be careful you don't get blasted. But at the same time, I always get permission before I go into locker rooms. I'll say, hey, coach. And, you know, while the coach is talking to the players, I'm not going to be sitting there on full auto going, because you get your ass tossed out of that room pretty quick. But, you know, some of these things are really important, especially in World Cup events. Man, you want that. You want that interaction, and it's really important. A major international magazine USA Today ran one of the photos that I showed you of the pregame, patriotic Americans waving the flag. It's a big thing. It was a really cool photo. So there. So athletic therapists. Okay. there's a disclaimer in shooting athletic therapists. It's great getting a therapist, a strength and conditioning coach, warming up the athlete, stretching the athlete, but there's a big taboo here. Under no circumstances, if an athlete has an injury or they're taping, say, a sore wrist or ribs or anything like that, you don't take a picture of an injured player being prepped for a game that could identify that player. Because I can tell you, if you take a picture, say a player's got a bad wrist, a hockey guy, and he's getting tape, his wrist tape, and that photo goes out and you identify the player, I'm going to tell you, in competitive and professional environment, chances are that player could be targeted. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's a reality, right? So be careful, or the teams will absolutely lose it if you take a picture of somebody who's like being treated for an injury. Just be cautious of that fact, okay? And that goes into ethics. And all you people here, there's no question about that. Is you all know the right from wrong and what you can and can't shoot. And as an event coordinator, you also want to control the access. There's various states of dress when you're dealing with locker rooms, various states of dress when you're dealing with therapists. So be cognizant of that fact. Pre-game on-field warm-ups or on-ice warm-ups or pre-game warm-ups. Players playing with soccer ball, lacrosse players warming up, stretching, running. All that is critically important to tell the story. Shots of the bench and game day staff. You know how many times coaches will say to me, yeah, great pictures, Batesy, appreciate all the action and all that, but can you get a picture of me on the bench, for God's sake? It goes a long way, because I'll tell you, you take a picture of the coaches, everybody has egos. Everybody turns around and enjoys seeing themselves in a good photograph, not an embarrassing one. Maybe next time your access gets a little bit better, or you get to encroach a little more than you normally would because the coach was real happy because you got a great shot of them, talking in the middle of a game to their athletes or whatever. So you never know. A little bit of perhaps nepotism in a lot of ways goes a long way, if that's the proper word. Shots of the bench, field wides or fisheye shots. Yeah, get a shot of the field, get a shot of the, fogs coming in or before the event or after the event, or, when there's nobody on the field or there's nobody, throw it in black and white, change the angle up, lots of different things. Crowd shots, already showed you an example of that. And then uploads to SM. Your pregame stuff, all my photographers that shoot an event for me are required to put pregame shots up. So they'll do some pregame stuff, whether it's 4 or 5 photographs. They'll go to their photo staging location or the photo room, and they'll upload to Twitter with their handles and with the watermark on it, their watermarks that's specific to the event. And they'll upload it to Twitter, and they'll get that out through social media. And I can tell you, it gets picked up really fast. All right. Moving over to the workflow process as far as a game, and I know I'm going over, so I'll try to speed it up. The national anthem, ISOs. In other words, an isolation shot of players during the national anthem, a combination shot. I got in major crap this year by shooting. I stay out of politics, but I took a picture of hockey players during the national anthem, and I put out kind of a controversial tweet. I took that picture and said, hockey athletes got it right. And what I basically did is I waded into the political waters of whether or not people are kneeling during the national anthem. I should have never have done it, and I got spanked. I got spanked from Hockey Canada, from the National Hockey League. I got spanked from my league, the commissioner's office. It just went on and on and on and on and on. So if you're going to take a picture of this, stay out of, I always say, photographers are not editors. Your editing or your captioning of a photograph should only describe the game action and not offer an opinion, like awesome shot, awesome goal, hard check. Don't get into editorializing. Just get into what actually, checked, made a hit, shot the ball, scores a goal, celebrates. Get into generic captioning. Don't get into the politics of that. Trust it. For me, it wasn't worth, the photo was a great shot, but boy, did I regret the commentary afterwards. ISO shots and portrait shots. An ISO shot means an isolation shot. Think of your hockey card shot or your individual, isolation shot, and then you need a variety of different shots, interactive shots, player A, player B, the offense, the defense, both teams, goals, celebration ISOs. Yeah, celebration shots are absolutely the best. Combination of that, goaltenders, isolate your goaltenders without question. Get some crease shots, change your angles. And again, at the half or in between periods, get used to, I make my photographers, sometimes they hate it, I make them put out at least one tweet in between every break in the action, such as a half, a period, and all that. You know why? It gets them used to using Photo Mechanic. It gets them used to feeling pressured. Oh, the DOP, the director of photography, is pressuring me. I got to get some images up. And pretty soon they start flying through it. Instead of one image, I get 5, I get 6. And then it trains them. And train yourself, push yourself. And that's what it's all about. As an event coordinator, you can simply say, give a photographer shooting list. Say, I like some pregame stuff. I like some game shots. Here's what I'm looking for game. If you get that technical. If you don't, no problem. Say, I want you to photograph the event. Okay. hopefully, photographers worth their salt will get into breaking this down. Post game, after the game is incredible as well. You get in post-game celebration, the handshakes, which are, that's going to disappear in professional sports because until they find a thing for COVID, we're going to get into fist pumps. We're going to get into, I don't know how they're going to deal with that, but handshakes are always a good photo. Interviews, players being interviewed by media, whatever, reactions, the winning, the losing, the celebrations. What was ABC Sports moniker for years, the agony of defeat. Yeah, for sure. Like all that is really, really important. And then you see my post-game kind of list here, uploads to social media, ingesting, tagging and selects. Ingesting is bringing the photos into Photo Mechanic. Tagging selects is basically saying, yeah, these are the photos I want. FTP images, basically throwing them out to the media where I got post-processing, the editing and uploading. That's pretty much my, my game, so to speak. Let me just get out of this. Sorry. Sorry about this, folks. I know I'm going long. Brad, what are you seeing right now?
Got a beautiful framed picture of your face.
Is that what you got? All right. I don't know where my...
What are you trying to pull up?
I'm trying to get my screen sharing on again. Whoops. Okay. I don't know what happened here.
You got is screen share at the bottom?
I've lost the feed completely here. Oh, there we are. Okay. All right. Now you got my desktop, right?
Got your desktop. Yep.
All right.
And I see Photo Mechanic.
Okay. So one more time before I close things out. Like I said, that fire hydrant example, you're probably realizing is good that, wow, this guy can talk fast. There's a ton of information that come out here. Brad will look after the draw for that. But as a coordinator, and I can't emphasize that enough, as a photographer, you to break the game down into what it is, the first period, the pregame action. To give you an example, like these are shots I took during the World Cup, and you can see, like, I'm not using every image, but what I end up doing is I can identify, is this the first half, the second half, the ratings of the photos, what I like, what I don't like. And I do this fast. I mean, here can be a real decent shot, but I got a lot of players' backs. And quite frankly, unless I'm going to crop this down here, I'm not going to use that photograph, right? And then you can get into some real decent game action stuff. You can go through it really, really quickly. And I can select the photos I like and the photos that I don't like. This is why when I said marking the photo positions, I've marked the photo position. So this is actually shooting right now. I'm shooting where the event photographers had access to, if you remember the diagram, and I won't go back to it because I'll probably log myself out. But this is the angle that I have from there, and I've changed the angles up. Again, these are all different angles, which is critically important. The coverage. I get blurry photographs too, like anybody else. So I'm, calling to what I want. And this program allows you to do it. What you're going to use, whether you're tight in on somebody or whether you're wide angle, all that sort of stuff. And then eventually, what I do here is I develop it to my uploads. Here's what I'm uploading to the media server that I'm by contract required to do. And all the photos are in here. But what this program, folks, allows you to do, and I can't plug it enough, is bring in your images. If you're a professional photographer or you're coordinating an event, it allows you to bring in your images and to quickly go through them, tag them. You can apply that metadata or that captioning that I said generically, or you can get right detailed on it and get the images out. It's a click of a button. Now, I don't allow my photographers to email photos because if you email a photo to anybody, it gets compressed. There's size restrictions. I mean, try to email a 10.1 meg picture, this picture here, or an 8.7 picture. It's not going to happen. But this program will allow it. It will automatically put compression in and send it out. So you can do that. And again, it's like file. You're going to export the photo, and it tells you how you can export it. You can do it through email. You can send it through different servers, all these sorts of things, which I didn't even get a chance to touch on. I apologize. We work with dedicated servers. You can see my screen here, Brad.
Yep.
This is our server that our photographers upload to. It's you don't have to worry. This is real technical. You can download a program called FileZilla. Here it is here. that will replace all this, but this is a specific server our guys and gals that work for me upload to, and they just do that at the events. Every event you attend as a professional photographer, you're going to get a location where to send the photos, and that's FTP, File Transfer Protocol. Here's my list: OJHL images, editor, National Hockey League. The program allows you to upload photos. Do you have a Dropbox, right? Are you you create a Dropbox which everybody can have access to? So you're coordinating an event. You don't have an FTP server. You don't have all these fancy things, but you can create a Dropbox. So if they have these photos, you're an event, send me the photos in. I'll put them in a Dropbox. I'll send them a Flickr, Galleries, Photo Deck, Photo Shelter, SmugMug, Twitter. All these different agencies are all listed here. Amazon, believe it or not. You can download all these photos. And you know, I have to be careful publishing you know, server connection settings, but basically you can transmit these photos anywhere in the world. So it's an invaluable program. And at the end of the day, if you're coordinating these events, and I apologize that I'm almost 15 minutes over, I'll get moving here. What it comes down to is managing digital imagery, and it's critically important. Is video great? Yes. And we have a television program associated to the league that I shoot in, and I'm not going to get into the specifics, but I can tell you, when my photographers walk into a rink, they're all known. Establish that rapport with an athlete is critically important as a photographer. If you're that ghost and nobody knows you, well, you know what? Sometimes that's the way it goes because of the event. But when they get to know you as a photographer, the event coordinators get to know you and they trust you, you work together, and that's it. What do you need? What do you need for this event? And if you're hosting this international event, and here's a shot just on the sidelines of all the World Cup teams, all these nations that are represented, it's amazing. Like, I had all sorts of coordinators come up to me and say, hey, I know you're shooting for Team USA, but can you turn around and get a couple of photos of to us and all these sorts of things. So yeah, 100%. I mean, there's some great stuff that you have the ability to shoot, and this program helps you coordinate it. Any quick questions I can answer, Brad, that you may have on the format?
Well, if people want to ask questions quickly, I would say pop them in the Q&A. I want to connect you with the award winner, so that can be coordinated, because I'm sure there's going to be questions about photo mechanics. So one of the attendees on here that thankfully the software does a random selection, and I only know a handful of the attendees today, but John Fry, if you are listening, could you shoot an email to Tim, or confirm by the Q&A that you have Tim's email from the initial slide, because the Summit software selected you as the recipient of a license for photo mechanic for 1 year.
Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations. Folks, my portfolio is here. You know what? I'm not the most picturesque guy in the world. I prefer being behind the camera, not in front of it. Are these a necessary evil? Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go through all the credentials and things that I have, but you're welcome to look at some of the work that I've done up here. It's all listed here. There's all sorts of different things. I did talk to you about the trick of the trade. Austin Matthews was, a very prominent athlete, was playing in a prospects game, and I got a picture of him. I was cheated a little bit. I got a picture of him shooting, basically skating through the center ice circle where the USA hockey logo was located, and that's the photo they ran on their media guide. That photo there made me a lot of money. It ended up on the Team USA's media guide for the IHF, which was incredible. And here, I'm conscious. I took a high riser position and basically shot photos, and there, a player skating through the USA Today hockey logo. Great. You know what? That's what USA Hockey wants to see. So think about what you're shooting and all that, some nature stuff. But you know what? I've gone a long time. I appreciate your certainly your listening to this. It's a ton of information coming at you. But if you can take anything from this, think about those pieces. Prepare, plan, know what you're doing. When you're negotiating, again, ask what that budget is. Critically important. See if you can work within that framework. And again, I know this is a ton of information. We're only scratching the surface, and I hope I didn't get off on tangents.
Tim, what's the best email for John to contact you at?
The OJHL Images email, ojhlimages@theojhl.ca. I'm gonna put this up here. Can you see my screen there? Is that coming up?
Yep. I can see the presentation. There you are.
Well, that's the best way to do it. Folks, if I can ever do anything for you photography-wise, or you want to shoot me an email or a DM on Twitter, if you send me an email, and trust me, when it comes to egos and all that sort of stuff, I certainly have one. There's no question about it. But I'll answer anything as honestly as I can. may not always like the answer, but I'm going to answer anything honestly, and I'll help you any way I can. I'm still learning as well. I have some great mentors in this game as well, and if there's something I can do to help you or make your life a lot easier as a photographer, once you get Photo Mechanic, I'm going to tell you something. You'll wonder how you turned around and got along without it. And thank you for allowing me to go 75 minutes on a Saturday where it's about 80 degrees outside. I can see my wife tapping her heels knowing that I got to cut the grass and get the pool stuff going. So I probably should end this, but thank you very much.
Well, Tim, thanks for coming on, sharing the expertise through this. I'm certainly glad you're on here sharing. We've got some great questions and some great comments. A ton of thank yous coming in. And an endorsement from one of your guys. So I'll read it because I agree with him. It says, Tim's a beauty. Pick his brain, you won't ever regret it. And you and I have had tremendous conversations at games in Brooklyn, in the locker room, in the office, doing things like that. So from a team operator's point of view, I'll wrap it up like this. We do have video, we do have streaming, we do have all that kind of stuff, but the photography part of our presentation for our league and team, for our box lacrosse, has been absolutely essential. And the workflow, the management, the things that we've been able to accomplish in the year that Tim and I have worked together have been absolutely essential for our social media team, for the guys in the club, and even for our league that needs pictures now and then. So I would suggest to anybody that's on here, if you do have questions and you're not in Ontario or you're not near us, email Tim, ask him questions. He's got the expertise, the knowledge, the know-how, and he's not afraid to share. So Tim, really appreciate your time. Oh, you know what? We just got inundated with thank yous, bunch of thank yous, 4 of them. Anything you want to wrap up on?
No, just, what, it's a great game. Photography is my passion. It's fueled by the athletes. I say I thrive in the trenches. I do that as well as photographers. So thank you so much for attending this. Like I said, I put up that fire hydrant because you're at the bottom of Niagara Falls getting a drink of water. So much information, but you know what? There's a lot of stuff on YouTube. Anything I can do to help you. I love this game. I love lacrosse. I love hockey. I love all sports. I love photography, and it's my passion. So yeah, thanks very much, everybody.
Okay, so listen, one little housekeeping item for me. It's not even housekeeping. We got to thank people that helped us bring this. But Major Series Lacrosse, Bear Paw Lacrosse Events, Sticks and Picks Podcast, Manitoba Lacrosse, the Par Team, Uncommon Fit, and Apex Lacrosse Events. So we are back in about 40 minutes with Max Soberlich from Boston University. He's going to talk all things defense on the field side. Might even throw a little bit of goaltending in. So join us again. Take care. Talk soon.